the world? Karmicdez 85. Of course, you can find me on YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, IG. Thank y'all for hopping in, joining, however you find or listen to the podcast. Do appreciate that. Sorry for the late start tonight. I know we have a lot of those. From me working on the business and sometimes having technical difficulties. Tonight is one of those technical difficulty nights. We're supposed to have Shake the Poet. We're supposed to be interviewing him tonight, but I got in a little late, and then when I tried to upload StreamYard, it couldn't remember any of my login information. So I'm going to have to work with that, and didn't want to do the forgot password link because then I'd have to go across all my tech and change the password. So I'm not going to be doing that. So tonight we're going to pivot. Let me pull up the video here on my end so I can make sure the feed is coming through good. There we go. So as usual, y'all know, or those who watch on a pretty consistent basis, you know how this goes. We're going to have an open discussion. I'm going to be expressing my experiences or relaying my experiences. And it looks like it did freeze. Oh, nope, there's none. So, yeah, feel free to comment, contribute to the conversation discussion if you'd like. And let me know where you're at and what your feelings are. See, I keep seeing it say slow connection, so when it says that, I kind of pop down to make sure it's flowing right. So tonight I wanted to talk about divorce, my divorce particularly, everyone's divorce generally, right? So with that being said, it's like, whew, where do you start, right? And I know some people probably aren't as open as I am to talk about that experience or the feelings associated with their divorce. I have no problems doing it. I think that's a bridge I've gotten over. I think that's a wound, I won't say is necessarily healed, but I can still move. I can still operate, right? Still do what I got to do in my everyday life, regardless of that little trip up, slip up, whatever, right? So, again, where do you start? I guess you would have to start with the marriage in order to get a divorce. So let's start with, that's a good point. Well, let's start with why I got married. What up, Kenneth? What up, man? Tonight's episode, thank you for jumping in. Going to be talking about divorce tonight. So I'm just trying to figure out where I wanted to start it off. And I figured that a good starting point for that would be why I even got married in the first place. So we can kind of figure out what went wrong from what I was seeing that led to my feelings of wanting to go ahead along with the divorce. So the reason I got married, let's see. Whew. I think I touched on it a little bit when I talked about being a step parent, but I don't think anybody's gotten that full episode because I was doing it on YouTube and it kept cutting it off. But the reason I got married, I figured it was time. Like, I figured I wanted to go ahead and put all my ducats into building a family. I was getting older. I didn't, the saying is you never getting any younger. And I know at some point I wanted to align. I wanted, be there for my kids. I want to be able to shoot basketball with my boys, and I want to be, what's the word? I want to have vitality on my daughter's first date. That type of thing. I wanted to be a real dad. But I knew in order to do that, I needed to find a woman that I can build that with. And again, at my age at the time, I didn't see too many that I'd be able to build that with, because it seemed like everyone was already in the process of building their families. They might not have been with the dads, but they're already in the process of building a family, right? So I had to kind of play the statistical odds there and was like, well, if I find a woman that's, will hold me down, that'd be good enough for me. So that essentially is why I got married to begin with. So we got that, and then you layer that with the fact that there were these kids, and I understand, kids without a father or at least a male figure in their life kind of need that. So I felt I could fill that role, and it just all made sense to me at that time. So the divorce, all right? So again, y'all hear I'm not just emotional with my decisions, I'm logical with my relationship decisions. Or at least I analyze my relationship decisions. And so what it came down to, again, with the divorce was I started to grow. And it's like those the things I thought I grew out of, let's say my need to create things, my need to want to build something for myself and my family. Those things started to pop back up and stronger, and that whole idea, I guess, the conservative family. I'm the father, I'm the husband, I'm the leader of this family. I'm gonna lead on principles, morals, action, those types of things. And for, I don't want to say people who aren't ready, but people who don't necessarily see that as a value, it begins to get rocky. So it's not necessarily that my values or anything like that changed, it's that they became more pronounced, so to speak, more enunciated. So what I was seeing or feeling on my end was a pullback. It was a pullback, then the rejection. So again, those, I guess my ex-wife would be, you can kind of consider liberal, progressive, whatever the hell they want to call it. I guess if you wanted to make the dichotomies that way. So, and in hindsight, I don't really think it's that. I think it was just that the respect for me wasn't there. And that makes it really rough, and it's almost like what they say is true. When you lose your woman's respect, you might as well go ahead and lose that relationship. Because from my experience, it's going to be rough if it does ever come back around. So that's where I was at. I felt disrespected, not only by my wife at the time, but by my kids, or stepkids. And it's just the principle, and one's principle that I feel like if I'm able to extend myself to help you out financially, spiritually, mentally, whatever the case may be, I don't really need the spiritually and mental stuff, or the financial stuff. I don't really need those things necessarily, but the respect I do need, right? So if you could accept me buying your meals all week, you could also accept my discipline. That's just how I feel about it. So it became lopsided. I was able to give and give and give, but I was never able to express things that I saw needed to be adjusted. Somebody just messed up all the metal on the bottom of their car, the plastic, whatever the hell that is. That relationship lasted 5 years. Yeah, 5 years, year and a half, 2 years, give or take, married. But the feeling of divorce, like I said, it's the pullback and then the rejection. So I started to see the pullback, and I'm a psychology major. So there's things I was noticing that we actually were talking about in our developmental class that I would be in class like, this sounds familiar, right? So, I go home and, you get in that observe and analyze mode. And I started to see things and started to call her out on it. Like, this, we talked about this in class today, and, you did this. It's kind of similar, what's going on there, right? And it was always, it's always never that, right? But it was one night for sure I knew it. So one thing that we went over in psychology, developmental psychology, that there are studies that they found after surveying and observing women over time. Typically, before a woman begins ovulating, typically before a woman begins ovulating, if she's a more reserved wardrobe type of person, more reserved, covered up, a few days before her ovulation begins, she's going to reveal a little bit more of her skin. And what they noticed was it's not even an intentional thing that goes on. It's a biological, and more, it's a biological, I want to say marker. That's too strong, but a biological response. So the analysis on that is that women are geared to attract I want to say the best mate, but they're geared to attract a mate around their ovulation period. And as with guys, we have our ups and downs, but for the most part, it doesn't take much for us to be in that mode, ready to go, right? So it's a little bit harder to detect in that way in men from a psychological perspective. I've never been with a man to even observe that, so I couldn't tell you. Typically, when we find out your guy is cheating when you find out he was cheating. So that's how that goes. But women, it's a little bit easier to tell. But again, it's still more 50-50 in that way, because women, hormones and inner worlds and that whole thing. But yeah, I picked up on it, and I pointed out to her. I was like, yeah, because last week, you went out, you were dressed like this, and this week, with the same group of people, and you were dressed like this. So I was just saying, according to the research, this is what that means. And so I just wanted to make sure that things aren't adding up the way I'm thinking they're adding up. And yeah, that took her way back, kind of like, like he's paying attention type stuff, right? And and when I pay attention, I pay attention. Let's say that. There are times, of course, absent-minded, you would say. Things slip my mind, or things slip past me, typically because my mind's probably working on 1, 2, or 3 things at the same time to catch literally everything in my purview. But when I'm on, I'm on. That's just what it is. And in that moment, I was on. Let's see. And there were other things that kind of signaled me as to what the situation was, and I played my card the best I knew how. I didn't cheat, I'll tell you that much. Don't see the point in it, didn't see the point in it, and it would only ruin my case. Again, analytical, thinking about the logic of it. If I were to cheat, then I have no ground to stand on if I were to bring some of that shit to her, right? But if I don't cheat, now I have the ground to stand on to bring that shit, and I brought it. And I found myself I'm gonna start here. So the movie was Get Out, The Sunken Place. that's a real place. So I found myself there, like but they say rock bottom, right? So in my case, I just really started recovery on I just really kind of started walking around and going through the recovery after my traffic accident. I mean, I had lost my job. The pandemic stuff had messed everything up, and they discontinued my disability through my job that I no longer had. My unemployment, again, everything picked back up, so they dropped the unemployment back down, and kind of ran through the savings that I had from I was getting paid. I had like 3 sources of payment from my bed, so that was nice. But after a while, that kind of ran through, and I didn't have the leg that I needed to stand on to get back to the money I needed. I knew I could make physically. And so I had to take a little rinky-dink job, but it wasn't rinky-dink in retrospect, but that's for a whole nother story. But yeah, that feeling, as soon as it hit me, it's kind of like that old friend. I said, "Oh, I know you. I remember you." I said, "I'd never see you, and I'd never meet you again." And as soon as I hit that feeling, boom, it was like, okay, bet. If this is what it's going to be, if I had to meet that motherfucker again, that means I got to get up and go. I don't know what the plan is, but I got to get up and go. So that next day, I started packing my stuff up. Had no words for her. And by that Friday, most of my stuff was out. I think there's some stuff that I still forgot. But yeah, most of my stuff was out. And I even took my mattress. I think I said this in the podcast before. Some people will be like, "Oh, that's petty." Well, you gotta look at it from my perspective. I didn't have a job. My lawn service was budding at the time. So I wasn't making as much as I make now. I mean, it's not like I make, thousands upon thousands. It's pretty decent. But, at the time, I might have been pulling maybe 200 a week, 300 a week. And I was able to work on the back and sweat and blood of my own to get and grind to get that mattress. Just to be told, a lot. I won't say a lot. Let's be fair. It was maybe about 3 complaints total. But I'm like, we agreed on this mattress. Memory foam. We'll do. I did as best I could with what I had because we needed a new mattress that damn bad. And yeah, I made it rhyme purposely after I realized where I was going. So yeah, I took the damn mattress. And then, crazy part of it all, get to where I'm at and realize I can't even use the mattress. So the motherfucking mattress stayed in this damn garage for maybe about 2 weeks. Till I calmed down enough to send the mattress back, I'll tell you that. And what helped was baby girl was like, "Daddy, did you take mommy's mattress?" I was like, "Well, first off, baby girl, that wasn't mommy's mattress. That was mommy's and daddy's mattress." Well, but I sent the mattress back, and it is what it is. But like I said, at the time when I met that motherfucker again, some of y'all met that motherfucker. You know what I'm talking about. Because again, I'm an analytical mind, so things made sense logically and emotionally. So when I started, when it works, when that synergy is in place for me like that, I start to make plans. I'm a planner. That's why I don't like when people mess up my plans. So if I've gotten over, the overreactions with it, I'm able to adjust a lot better. But you learn that throughout life when you're a planner, because your plan is always going to get messed up. So it's best to plan for the plan to get messed up. And I just didn't do that. So like, you got like 5-year plans, vacation plans, you plan on being there at graduations, bicycle rides, and all the firsts. And like that, you don't have them no more. Or they're that much more difficult to attain. So sometimes the decision is not even wholly you, and that's whether male or female. And then coming from divorced parents myself, I didn't ever want that for the kids. That's why I'm hesitant towards marriage in that way, because especially if you have kids, because it's like, okay, if we get married, this kind of has to work. Because I don't, and then I don't even do divorce. So that's the crazy thing about it. I don't do divorce so much. Let's see. She gave me the papers the first time, and I kind of played it off. Not gonna lie to y'all. I was kind of like, okay, I'll review it. I'll read it. She was like, why you need to read it? Just go ahead and sign it right here. And she got so cantankerous with and rowdy with it. I was like, fuck it. I ain't about to sign shit. Fuck that. What up, Kurt? Welcome to the show. Talking right now about divorce, and just expressing my experience. And you've been on the show and you've watched the show, so you know how it is. You express your comments, your experiences. But I don't think you have that. I don't think you've experienced divorce. Y'all are going strong, bro. I commend that for real, for real. But where was I at? Shit. Oh man, that's that short term right there. Yeah, you miss all the firsts. Again, makes it harder to get to to get those first. But you do miss some first inevitably, right? Because you're not there, you're not in the household, you're not getting that constant feedback or that constant whatever. And that's who I was. I'm the type, everybody sleep. I go check the rooms. Shit, hell, weekends, midday, I might pop in the room on the kids. Hey, what you doing? What you got going on? Who you talking to? What you watching? What you doing? You smoking weed? No, I'm fucking with you. Are you though? That's the type of the dad I am. I learned that through that whole process. And then that right there, this is not you're not even divorcing the mom, just the mom. In my case, mine or other men case, you're divorcing the kids too, and don't let them be strong on the mom's side. Now you got the whole brigade, the whole platoon, whatever, and they against you, and all you try to do is come in there and be a man. It's rough. Which is why I'm so upset and frustrated that I couldn't get all of it in one try for the step parent episode. But I am going to swing back around because I think that's a good one. I want to get step parents, like I said, particularly women who are step parents. I want to hear what they've got to say. 'Cause I don't think I ran into a lot of women who are step parents. And have y'all? Kurt? Kenneth? Y'all ever ran into any or many women step parents? If you have, let me know in the comments whether you see this on Facebook or YouTube. And if you are one of those women that is a step parent, check out my contacts. Hit me up on Facebook Messenger and in the comments. And my email is godbody1685@gmail.com. Again, that's godbody1685@gmail.com. I might have to make another Gmail email for the goddamn podcast now that I think about it. So I don't have everything flooded in one podcast or one email box. But and then that right there, I don't have the time. Okay, so there we go. About 30 minutes in. How much do I have left of the divorce? That's where I was at. So yeah. So again, I ain't gonna lie. I dodged the whole actual process of the divorce for a minute. Because again, I don't do divorce. So you want a divorce, go figure that shit out. Leave me out of it. When it be done, I'm good. So I had the papers, and I finally buckled down and decided to sign them. And guess I forget where I was at, my lunch break or in the car or something like that. But some of my drink spilled on it. So I tried to give it to her, and she was like, "She can't turn it in." Like, it turned into a whole thing, and I'm like, "Look, I signed the paper. That's what you wanted. Just go ahead and turn the fucking paper in. All I'm gonna do is file it. You just need the signature anyway, right?" So yeah, that had me upset about that. I guess that didn't get filed, and I'm at work one day, and I'm talking up front, and I see, if I remember correctly, it was the constable pulled into the parking lot, and I was like, "Oh man, police up in here! Hey y'all, police over here!" I know how we do. I was like, shit, while I'm playing, man, shit, they might be for me. So I went to the back, doing what I do. Next thing I know, Desmond. I'm like, what's up? He was like, the police here for you. I was like, get the fuck out of here. I was like, well, shit, let me go see what the fuck they want. Because I know I ain't did nothing, right? And to my knowledge at the time, I didn't have any warrants. At the time, to my knowledge, and to my knowledge at that time, I didn't have any warrants. We're not talking about my knowledge right now. We're talking about at that time. This is for legal purposes. I didn't know I had any warrants. I was like, yeah, let me take my apron and shit off and go holler at them real quick, see what they want, see what they're talking about. So I get out there. She's like, Mr. Easton? I'm like, yeah. She's like, Desmond Easton? I'm like, yeah. We're saying the birthday, the demographic, statistic information. And like, okay, well, it's a lot of questions. What's going on? She was like, I got a divorce decree right here. I need you to go ahead and sign here. She was like, and I was like, hey, I'll do this now? She was like, yeah, and they can't get a hold of you. They said, let's come find you and have you sign. I was like, oh, that's crazy. And you found me. That's crazy, right? So I'm reading it. I'm getting ready to, I was going to just sign off the rip, but I started reading. I was like, oh. I said, right there. She was like, what's that? I was like, it say $85 to file this paperwork. I was like, do I got to pay that $85? Or does she pay the $85? How does it roll? She's like, oh, that $85 already paid. I was like, it's already paid? She's like, it's already paid. I was like, well, if it's already paid, I don't see no reason why I shouldn't go ahead and just sign the sign the paperwork. But I was checking to make sure really, everything was kosher on the paperwork. I said, read that, checked the names and stuff, made all sure. But I was curious. I was like, what was the reason they put in this motherfucker? I was like, oh, that's a reason. Okay, they got the reason right there. Irreconcilable differences. Huh. Go figure that one. And the statistics on that one says 80% of the time, that's money. So I got divorced because money, y'all. Allegedly. Statistically speaking. Right? And in hindsight, it's kind of like Job. So it doesn't even too much bother me anymore. Because what God did for Job was he took everything that was bad from around him. Everything that was holding him back. Everything that might have been a temptation. And amplified it. He got him a woman that was loyal to him. Got him some kids that loved him. He got more farm animals and more land than he ever had at any point in his life. All he had to do was remain faithful, which apparently he had no problems if you know the story, in the midst of the tribulation. Does seem like a bad payoff to me. Because he got more of what he had. And I use the Bible like that. Because you do see some of the stories across different faiths and religions, and that reflect these principles. A lot of people look at them just stories, and I don't necessarily look at them as stories per se. I look they are narratives of a principle about how the world works. I think if people looked at not even just the Bible, but unless explicitly stated, all scripture that way, because they're trying to relay that something, that kernel of truth, that kernel of realness, that kernel of reality. They're trying to relay and express that to you in the best way they know how. And with in a time without TV, the best way to do it is orally or written form, through some type of story. And in the time of kings and queens, metaphor would be the way to go. That way, if you want to address the king and queen, you can do that without them directly knowing they're being addressed. And you can even express the story and your disdain for the king and queen to their face in the proper language, if they're not aware of the language, or they're not aware of the references, I should say. So I signed that paper. Let's get it over with. I've been procrastinating too long. It's already paid for. I'm done. But the reconcilable differences, that's crazy. She said, "Thank you, Miss Susan." I said, "Thank you. You have a nice day." I said, "You have a nice day." Gone. She drove the fuck off. I said, "It's crazy." I was like, I didn't know they ever. I didn't ever think they would track you down at work to get you to sign the divorce papers. But yeah, I wouldn't worry about and then the fight for custody. Like, why would I fight to keep the baby from the mom? I don't understand that one. I'd fight for visitation, but we didn't argue over that. There is no argument over visitation. I can call her up and like, "Hey, Saturday, I want to pick her up." She's like, "Okay, what time?" It's kind of always been like that. There's just rough patches here and there. I don't think you say rough, bumpy patches. There's everything else is the rough patches. But when it comes to a baby girl, it's bumpy. And I wish it was at least bumpy with my youngest. Right now, that shit's on a fucking cliff. And so, again, I take all that in stride. A lot of it is my fault. But I can't be responsible for personable actions, I guess I would call them. Yeah, I can't do that. What you do is what you do, and what I do is what I do at the end of the day. And that's where, and that leads right back to the divorce thing. And I feel in my bones, infidelity, cheating is what was going on. So, with that being said, you do what you do, and I do what I do. But what you're doing, I'm not gonna let it drag me into. I'm not gonna be dragged into that. It's point blank. Period. I'm not. Now, as far as being single and in no relationship and not committed to anyone, I might have different views of things there. But again, I think I try to apply gracious morality there, because I'm no saint. I'm not perfect there, and I have sinned. But if something like something like cheating, I haven't sinned in that area. Oh yeah, you gonna get this fire. I'm gonna give it all to you, and you can't hold. What you gonna say? I cheated? No, no, no. Stop. No, I didn't. And I'm not even about to back and forth with you. Just playing right that. No, I didn't, and I'm about to keep giving you this fire because I didn't do that. Never have. Can't say never will. I don't know the future, but it's not probable. Let's see. Any other points to hit? Got through the divorce. There's some revelations I had. I know I was talking with my boy Jarvis at one point after the divorce and the revelation. And I posted I made a post in the Facebook group. A guy called Anton Daniels. He kind of had this same revelation after talking with an older guy. And that revelation is that as a man, you will be